Thank you all for coming. You know, I know it's not easy. You know, but everyone has. So, the Megilas Esther concludes with an incident that seemingly really has no relevance to the Megillah. Is Vayosem Hamelech Achashverosh Mas Al Haaretz V'I Hayom. Thank you. That Achashverosh, he was a melech, and you know that he placed a tax on all of the provinces, and the Gra points out that the Mas and the Iyei Hayom of the gematria of Mas and the Iyei is 127, which corresponds to the number of Medinas that he ruled over in his empire, right? And then the Megillah finishes. We'll skip a few. Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishnah LaMelech Achashverosh VeGodol HaYehudim VeRatzu LeRavechov Doresh Tov LaAma VeDaver Shalom L'Chol Zara. Says that Mordechai Yehudi was the Mishnah LaMelech, and he was Godol HaYehudim. He was Ratzu LeRavechov, and he was Doresh Tov LaAma VeDaver Shalom L'Chol Zara. Okay. What is the Dorish Tavla Amma that he looked always to? He looked even the way the Evan Ezra says that he went out of his way. He was always looking for someone to whom he could help and benefit, and that's what the Beis Halevi says. That he doesn't quote even the Evan Ezra, but he said Gezucht Ayid mit Vemen HaTovet Seton. He would look to do a tova for someone. The Dover Shalom L'Chol Zara. Okay, so this already, the Davar Shalom L'Chol Zara, it means that he, for his families, for his children, but this seems to be a little bit superfluous. This is obvious. If you Darish Tarvili Amos says Davar Shalom L'Chol Zara. And besides that, this whole Indian of the Mas Al Haaretz V'Iyah Hayom is very, very difficult to understand, because what does this actually have to do with the Nace? What does it have to do? What role does it? This is something where the king probably, they were always, it's a myth. We think that that the absolute monarchs, they didn't have money because mostly they were always broke. Understand? They were always broke then because they always spent, and they always, and especially in these empires, Persia, they lived a very, very lavish, expensive lifestyle. There was never money. So what does this have to do with the Nace? And then the parak ends with Dover Tov Doresh Tov Le'ama v'Dover Shalom L'Chol Zara. So the Ksav Sofer explains, and he says that the emes, it was Mordechai Tzaddik was Rotzu L'Rovechov, not L'Kol Echov, but L'Rovechov, and the Chazal say because of his government involvement, he was forced to place some limits on the time that he was able to spend learning. And there were those that were not really pleased with that. So therefore he was only Rotzu L'Rovechov. The Ksav Sofer gives another explanation, and he says that the Pasuk begins that he was the Mishnah LaMelech Achashverosh. So among his fellow Yidden, there was a feeling of a little bit of consternation, that they couldn't understand that Achashverosh pays taxes, and some of the taxes were very heavy taxes, they were burdensome taxes, and why didn't he use his influence to exempt the Klal Yisrael, his fellow Jews, from this burdensome taxation, right? Why didn't he do that? And it was difficult for them to understand that, but Mordechai Tzaddik had a different cheshbon. He felt that he would, by doing so, he would generate resentment and anti-Semitism, and that he felt that if it were during his lifetime and Esther's lifetime, they would be able to handle it. But what would happen when there was no more Mordechai and no more Esther, right? There would be terrible terrible resentment, and it would come back to haunt the very people that he wanted to help. So therefore he felt that it was for the tova of the Klal Yisrael that no exception should be made, and the taxation should be imposed upon them as well. So that's what the Megillah, so that's what the Megillah ends. The Megillah says that Mordechai Tzaddik, although he chose not to interfere and to see that his fellow Jews should be exempted from taxation, but nevertheless, don't make the mistake of thinking otherwise. He was dover shalom l'chol, he was dorish tov la'amor, and dover shalom l'chol zara, dorish tov la'amor, because he wanted to see to it that there should be, he wanted to minimize resentment, and he was dover shalom l'chol zara because he understood that in the future, when he was no longer there could be repercussions that there would be no one really to stand up against. So that's what the Megillah says, okay? That's the way that the Ksav Sofer explains the Megillah, the conclusion of the Megillah. Okay. The taxes evidently were very, very burdensome, and therefore, according to the Ksav Sofer, the Megillah, the Pasuk has to reassure us that although Mordechai Tzaddik didn't take any action to relieve them from the taxes, but it was because he was Dover Shalom L'chol Zara. He was Dorish Tov Lamo. There's in Hilchas Cholamoid, there's a Taz, and in Tov Kuf Lametes, where the Mechaber discusses what melachas are muter Cholamoid, what melachas are aser. We're not talking about actually the melachas as such, the Lametes melachas. He's talking in that simon, the Mechaber is talking about more masul matan, business. And the Taz says that in his dar and many prior daras, he said, Lo ra'inu, he said, we never saw any circumstance by which people were monea from what's called pragmatia. Pragmatia is really, business, buying, selling. It's an endeavor which doesn't involve the lametes melachas, but it's certainly your masiach das from the simchas yontiv, and in a perfect world it would have probably been discouraged. And he brings a Tosfos in Bava Metzia in Ezer Neshech, and he says that Tosfos says that although that min haTorah, the Torah says la nochrit tashich v'lachicha lo sashich. That Neshech and Tabis is mutter to charge a goy, to pay a goy, to take from a goy, but there are many the Rabbanan restrictions, and it's not just completely, heter. There are many, restrictions that the Chazal. But he says that Bizman Hazeh, he says that since the burden of taxation is so heavy, particularly on Jews, so he said. So therefore, he said that they were the Chachmei Hadoros were very, very mekel in ribis from a goy, because and particularly at that time, remember that many Jews were so restricted in many locations that the only way that they really had to make a living was through some kind of usury, and banking. That was the only way. So therefore, he said that the Chazal in this context is that and the Chachmei Hadoros, the Rishonim, saw to it that it was better to be, mekel and therefore to allow the Yidden to do anything that was mutter min haTorah, to be able to make a living, to be able to sustain, among other things, the very, very great burdens that were placed upon them by governments and so on. Okay, come sit down. All right.
Oh, stand.
All right. So now, it's very likely that, remember that the Gemara talks about in Daf Hey in Megillah, the Gemara speaks about, the Gemara brings a Maisa, and it says that the Rabbeinu HaKodesh planted Natan Netiyah B'Purim. Right, Rabbi Chanina, who was a Talmud of Rabbi, was made, the Rabbi Natan Netiyah B'Purim, that he planted. Netiyah is, planting is one of the Lamites Melachas, it's Zoreya, right? It's the second, there's Chodesh, there's Zoreya. Netiyah and Zoreya are really, if it's a question, if both are obvious, one is an oven, one is a tolda, but al koponim, both are Issa Deraisa, and they're from the Lamites Melachas. And so Rab Chanina was made that Rabbeinu HaKodesh was not a Netiyah. So the Gemara goes into a shakla v'taya of almost an omud, and the Gemara said, how could he do this? How was he allowed to do this? And the Gemara brings that Rabbi Yosef Eli, how are you, Eli? Come, sit, Eli. It says that the Rabbi Yosef brings a beraisa when it says v'hotoni Rabbi Yosef. So some don't understand what the real meaning of the Gemara is, and they say that v'hotoni Rabbi Yosef means that Rabbi Yosef taught. But this v'hotoni Rabbi Yosef means that Rabbi Yosef quoted a beraisa. It's a beraisa. Wasn't his own chiddush. That simcha mishta v'yomtav, right? Simcha malamed shasurim behesped. Okay, that yemei Purim yemei simcha the asurim behesped. Mishta malamed sha'osa betanis. It's osa betanis. And v'yomtav malamed sha'osa basiyas melacha. So how could Rebbe do publicly, desecrate Purim, which it says that Yom Tov is an Issa Melacha. So the Gemara deals with this in different ways, and the Gemara wants to say at first that that this was on the 14th, and Rebbe kept the 15th, and the Gemara isn't really happy with that. In the end, we'll have to skip down a little bit, and the Gemara comes to a conclusion that Rabba Bereda Rava Omar, that the Rabba Bereda Rava, it was Rava's son. So you see that if you look what's going on here, that Reb Chanina, who was a Talmud of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, it means that Reb Chanina was from the first Amoraim. He was really the beginning of the Amoraim, and he was the one that witnessed, and he was made that Rebbe was not a Netiyah. And then it came all the way to Rabba Bereda Rava, which was almost, Rabba Bereda Rava was a contemporary of Ravina and Ravashi. It was all there. How many generations went past from Rebbe Natan Netiyah until they came to some kind of an understanding of what really happened here. And he says that Afilu Tema, that B'Yomer, that even if we assume that this was Rabbi's day, that he kept Purim, even if Rabbi lived in Tveria or in Kaseya, wherever Rabbi lived, and it was Mukas Chaima, it could have been the 15th, it could have been the 4th, but this was his day of Purim. But Hesped V'Tanas Kebilu Alayu, Melachalo Kebilu Alayu, that the Klal Yisrael at the time of Mordechai and Esther, they were makabel the Simcha of Purim, they were makabel the Isser of Hesped, the din of Mishnah, but they were not makabel the Isser Malacha, the Mikara Ksiv Simcha Mishnah v'Yom Tov, because at first it says Simcha Mishnah v'Yom Tov, Ulasov Ksiv Lasos or some Yemei Mishnah v'Simcha v'Ilo Yom Tov Laksiv. The first time the Megillah, when the Megillah tells us that Mordechai and Esther sent the Geras and said that they were mekabel to observe Purim Simcha Mishta v'Yom Tov v'Mishloach Monos Ish L'Reyu, and in the final the Geras Shneim it says no, that they were only mekabel Simcha Mishta and Matanas Levyonim. And so he learned, so Rabba Bar Rava learned that although it does say that there was that Yontiv was in Melamed Shasurim Basias Malacha, but nevertheless they weren't makabel this. They weren't makabel, and so therefore Rebbe was all right with what he did. Although Oser Malacha Purim is Einer Roa Simen Brocha, but then the Gemara gives another teretz that it was maybe a Netiyah Shel Simcha, and that's that teretz is going according to the brayso that Rabbi Yosef brought, that they weren't mekabel the Issa of Malacha. Okay, so that's the there's the question. We have there's a question here that really has to be answered. That how could it be that I pointed out that we're going here many generations. You're going all the way for Rab Chanina, who was the first generation of Amoraim. He really overlapped with the Tanoim, and then you came many generations down to Rabbi de Rava, who was a contemporary of Ravina, and Rav Ashi was already the Soif Amoraim. So many Doris. So how could it be that Rabba, Berei de Rava, is going to argue with a Beraisa? It wasn't Rabbi Yosef's member. Rabbi Yosef brought the Beraisa. Rabbi Yosef was familiar with the Beraisas. Remember, because he was a Sagi Noah, and he couldn't learn Torah Shebeksav, because he had Torah Shalom Bal Peh. So he learned, although it was already after Rabbeinu HaKodesh's time, but nevertheless he was a big Baki in Targum in the Beraisas and everything. So Rabbi Yosef brought this Beraisa, right? Okay. So, what is the answer? The answer is that he saw that Rebbe was not a Netiyah. So, although the Beraisa says Simcha Mishte V'Yontav that it's Asurim B'Melocha, but nevertheless he saw that Rebbe, he heard from Chanina, in Reb Chanina's name, that Rebbe was not a Netiyah. So if Rebbe was not a Netiyah, so it means that Rebbe was choilek on that Beraisa, and the Beraisa we don't know whom if it was a Yochid, it was a Rabbim, and so therefore he held that since Rabbeinu HaKodesh was choilek on that Beraisa, and Rabbeinu HaKodesh held that they were not mekabel the Isser Meloch on Purim, okay, since they weren't mekabel the Isser Meloch on Purim, so he held that was the halacha, that the Beraisa was nidche because of the Meiser Rav that they witnessed from Rabbeinu HaKodesh, okay? All right. The Megilas says that the Zichron lo Yosef Mezaram v'mei Purim mo'ela lo Yavram etoch HaYehudim v'Zichron lo Yosef Mezaram. That, and from there we see that the Megilas Esther was Beruach HaKodesh, and it was Zichron lo Yosef Mezaram, and Zichron lo Yosef Mezaram, according to the way that the Rambam explains in the end of Hilchos Megillah, refers even to La'osid Lava. Okay. So, what that we would say, what's that Rebbe gedrikt? What bothered him that motivated him to go against the Beraisa? What did he see? What the Rebbe saw was what the Taz saw. The Taz saw that Vayosam HaMelech HaChashverosh Masal HaOretz V'yei Hayom, a very, very burdensome kind of tax, and it wasn't something at a Haroah Shah at that time. This was something that was dar achar dar achar dar, and it only gets worse and worse and worse. The financial burdens, right, on the average family. And so Memela Rebbe saw that Zichron lo Yosef Mezaram. So Memela, he darshaned that because of this, Issa Melocha la Kabila Alayu. In other words, he understood when Rabba Berei Rabbi Yosef was Berei Rabba was saying that Mishte v'Simcha Kabila Alayu. But he was explaining what was in Rebbe's mind. because no one until that time was really able to figure out what did Rebbe have in mind, that he was in defiance of the Braisa. But he understood that since Zichron Lo Yosef Mezarim, and from Zichron Lo Yosef Mezarim, the Yerushalmi says in Perek Beis that the Chachomim understood that this meant that they were going to be koveya a mesechta, because after all, the dinim of Purim could have been a few mishnayos in Sukkah, in Rosh Hashanah. Well, why were they koveya a separate, a complete mesechtas Megillah? Because it says v'zara v'zicham la Yosef mizaram, and Memela v'zicham la Yosef mizaram says that there has to be a zeicher in the Torah Shabbal Peh. So Memela Rabbeinu HaKodesh saw that Zichron, that the Megillah was Nitten Lidorish, and the Megillah was going to be, that Purim was going to be eternal, it was going to be forever, and the Memela, and he saw what the Taz saw of the kosher hashibud, that's what it was, the kosher of the taxation burden, and so Memela, he understood that the Drush in the Psukim was that although the Igeris Rishonim said Yom Tov, but since the Igeris Shneim didn't say Yom Tov, he understood that Mordechai and Esther anticipated this, and therefore they gave the option to be Mekabel the Yom Tov or not to be Mekabel the Yom Tov Be'isa Malacha. That's what, so Memela Rebbe took it upon himself, right, to be Noteya Netiya Bepurim, to illustrate this, to show this, okay? And he dashed all of this Vazichram Ba Yosef Mezaram, and he saw through this, he saw in the Psukim that the discrepancy, that the first Pasuk says that they were Makabel Yontim, the second Pasuk doesn't mention Yontim, so he saw to Darshan that since it says V'zichram La Yosef Mezaram, that Purim is going to be forever, and forever there's going to be tzoros and financial burdens that are going to make it so difficult for people to even barely exist. So he saw that it was too much to demand that there should be 2 days of Issa Malacha, and therefore he dashened that Simcha Mishte Kabila Lai and Issa Malacha La Kabila.
So he's saying that when he was Matir Pragmatia, he wasn't Matir only specifically Pragmatia. He was Matir anyway.
No. Cholamoid is different.
What?
Cholamoid is that's Cholamoid, but the principle is the same. Cholamoid, we can't apply, we can't. We can't. The principle that applied to pragmatia, maybe even I would say maybe even the Taz based it, although he doesn't say it. He based it on this. He says it by the 9 days also. The Taz says it. Okay, Cholamoid. We'll see. If we get to it, we'll see Cholamoid where it differs from Purim and where it's similar to Purim. Okay. Very yitochen that la'osid lavo when we're going to be ein bein, olam azel lemosa Mashiach ela shibud malchius, right? Very, 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 very likely that when the shibud malchius, when Mashiach comes and there won't be shibud malchius, it will be the full, total observance of Purim will be restored, and Purim will become again what it was intended to be in the Igeris Rishonim. And there will be an Issa Malacha. It will be a regular day of Malacha, right?
How would you do something like Matanas Lev Yonam in that situation?
Wait, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. It's a good question, okay? And you see that a raya to this, that Purim, unlike Hanukkah, there is a machlokes in Rishonim, but the Rov Rishonim, not the Rambam, but the Rov Rishonim and the Ramah and in Yoredeya the Mechaber also say that Avelis isn't Noeg on Purim. We're not Noeg Avelis Shiva on Purim, and the Shiltas goes as far as to say that not only does Purim interrupt Avelis like Shabbos, and then you conclude the Avelis afterwards, but the Shiltas says, the Rosh brings the Shiltas, that the Shiltas holds that Purim is doicha the entire Shiva. It's just like Avela, like Yom Tov is doicha Shiva, so the Purim is doicha the Shiva as well. And that's the Rosh has many questions, but nevertheless, that is the Shiltas. The Shiltas, Rabbi Chai Goin. Okay. So now, it comes out like this, that if Purim, when Purim was initially intended to be a yontif with an Issa Malacha, right? And La'osid Lavo, if Purim will be restored as a full yontif with an Issa Malacha, it comes out that most likely you will not be allowed, you will not be permitted to put on tefillin on Purim. You won't be permitted to put on tefillin on Purim because, for the same reason that you don't put on tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you won't put on tefillin on Purim. So lest someone thinks that I'm just making it up, I have thought this many times, and I'm going to tell you how to show you something a little bit more inside. But I found, and I think that I've told you this before, that that they said the Timim Deim from the Raavad Shalas and Shuvas, the Raavad was asked if you have to put on tefillin on Purim. And what the Raavad says, he says, Upurim betfilin nira chayev, right? But Malach is totally in the minig amokam because lo kebilu. And then he says, v'chol shel moed potim in atfilin mipnei shehen yemei ois ki yomim tovim. The chol moed, he holds like the Rishonim that say that the yemei chol moed are an ois, and therefore it's not chayev in tefillin, it's also in tefillin. Because if you put the tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov l'shem mitzvah, it could be over Bal Tosef as well. Okay? So Memele, if he holds that the Yemei Chol HaMoed are Yemei Os, so then it would be Oser tefillin, because you have one Os, you don't need another Os. Shabbos is an Os, Yom Tov is an Os. So Memele, if the Yemei Purim, so if he says in one tshuva, he says that the Yemei Chol HaMoed are Oser, there's no tefillin Chol HaMoed because it's an Os, right? And why is Purim chayev in tefillin? Because it's not an Os. What happens if Purim is an Os, or the way that it was originally intended by Mordechai and Esther that Purim should be an Os? Then there would be no tefillin. There would be no tefillin. Okay. So listen. It's all right. Thank you. Okay. So listen. So you remember that in the Agadata, so the Yud Aleph Psichas to the Megillah. So the first is was Rabbi Yonason, and then was Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, who was the Talmud of Rabbi Yonason. Okay, he was the first Amora that was mentioned there. Rabbi Yonason was from the later Tanoim, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Nachmani was his Talmud. And he darshaned the Psukim, and he came, I'm only going to come to the end, okay, because you know, we have time constraints, and he says that he darshans the posuk v'hoyo l'Hashem l'shem la'os olam lo yikoreis, and he darshans on the, because tachas hasirpad yala adas, tachas hanatzutz yala berosh, this goes on Mordechai and Esther, and he said in the posuk includes v'hoyo l'Hashem l'shem la'os olam lo yikoreis. So v'hoyo l'Hashem l'shem is Mikra Megillah. That the Mikra is Hashem. The Mashal says that that V'hoyol Hashem l'Shem is the Mikra Megillah. Since the Shem Havaya doesn't appear in the Megillah, you make the bracha, and that supplements for the Shem that doesn't appear in the Megillah. La'os olam lo yikares elu yemei Purim. Okay. La'os olam lo yikares elu yemei Purim. So it comes out that the yemei Purim are an os, right? That's what it says. The yemei Purim are an os. Okay. No, if the Yemei Purim are an Oris, and that's what Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, so why do we put on tefillin? The Raavad, we just saw the Raavad, that the Raavad says, right there, Vigdam, right?
No, just the abundance of rice is.
That doesn't matter.
I'm lost
Right.
with ribbis. Any constraints of ribbis? The Rav will explain to me later on.
Yeah.
That I never heard ever.
Yeah.
Rav explain to me later. I don't want to.
So the thing is that if the Yemei Purim are an os, right? And it could very, very well be that the Yemei Chol Hamoed are an os also. But nevertheless, it's not necessary that only an os which the Torah says oisi beni ubenechem. It could be that if the Chachamim were koveya something as an ois, it also,
Yeah, I don't
Okay, so but al kolponim Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani says v'hoyo laHashem laois laois olam laHashem laois olam la'yikares, and this is the Yemei Purim, right? Okay. No. Very, very difficult to understand, because if the Yemei Purim are an ois, it has to be part and tefillin according to the way that the Raavad explained. Okay. Elama, since we say that Rabbeinu HaKodesh was made that Isa Malacha lo kibilu alayu, so Memela Mordechai and Esther wanted to make the Yemei Purim a total, completely yontiv and Isa Malacha, but the Klal Yisrael wasn't a Kabul, so Memela that ois of the Yemei Purim, right? The ois of the Yemei Purim, they weren't makabel, so memela were chayav b'tfilin. Okay, they weren't makabel it, and evidently Rabbeinu HaKodesh understood that they could be. They have the option, yes, to be makabel or not to be makabel. Okay, now it's interesting because the gears of the Ein Yaakov is exactly the opposite. The Ein Yaakov says that v'hoyo l'Hashem l'Shem, right, is Yemei Purim, la'ois oilam lo yikares is Megilah. Okay, that's a very, very difficult girsa. It's a very difficult girsa, because if you say that the ois goes on the Yemei Purim, the way our Gemara, we have the Nusach of Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani, then you say that since lo kibilu alayhu, that the Klal that Rabbeinu HaKodesh was made, that the Klal Yisrael wasn't mekabel the Issa Malacha, so memela it's not a yontiv to discuss what koyach he had, but evidently he darshan that Mordechai and Esther left that question open, and lo kibilu alayhu, memela there's no question, there's no Issa Malacha, there's no problem with the tefillin, because although Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani said la'ois olam la'yikares the Yemei Purim, but lemaisa they weren't makabel, and Mordechai and Esther left it open to the Chachmei Hadoros whether to yes be makabel or not. But lemaisa the ois olam ele Yemei Purim isn't a problem because they weren't makabel the Malach anyway. But according to the girsa of the Ein Yaakov is mahapach the girsa. The Ein Yaakov is mahapach the girsa. What is the girsa of the Ein Yaakov? V'hoyo l'Hashem l'Shem is Yemei Purim, and la'ois olam lo yikares is the Mikra Megillah. It comes after that. What is the ois? The Mikra Megillah. Mikra Megillah when is noig b'zman hazeh. V'ayomim ha'elu niskarim v'nasim. Right? No. So if the mitzvah of sukkah patters from tefillin chol hamoed, and the achilas matzah, which isn't even a mitzvah chiyuvis, and the mitzvah of achilas matzah chol hamoed, which isn't even a mitzvah chiyuvis, it's a mitzvah chiyumis, and that patters from tefillin chol hamoed because that's an os. No, so if the ois olam lo yikares goes on the Mikra Megillah, so what mokum is there to put on tefillin according to the way the Raavad is learning, right? And this is it's not. I never saw anyone but they asked many kashas on the gears of the Ein Yaakov. The thing is this, that we make the assumption that again, the way that I'm explaining is that Rabbeinu HaKodesh used the koyach to dash the psukim, and remember that Megilas Esther is only one of the svarim in Tanakh besides the Chamisha Chumshe Torah, which it says is nitten lidorish, because the Megillah was nitten b'Sinai, and that's why we learn dinim. The Shlosh Esrei Midrash Atari Dereshesbam applies to the Megillah. It doesn't apply to Rus. It doesn't, even though what we learn from the Sefer Rus, we learn the Kinyan Chalitin. That's the only thing we learn from there. But we say the Zois Lefonim be Yisrael. It doesn't say the Megillah Rus wasn't Machadish Chalitin. It says the Zois Lefonim be Yisrael. This was the practice Miyomim Yomima. But to learn, right?
Garrus.
Yeah, no, but that's no, because that's not those dinim. You're saying that the way you have to deal with the gerim and everything, but that may not even be. And again, it bears further. That may not even be a deraisa, and that is a good practice. It's practical, but the halacha is hilchasa kulam gerim. If you're mekabel a ger without is also a ger. Kevin Shemol v'Tovel is his Yotzim Meklal Akum, and he came to. You know, that's again like the Zos Lefanim, that this is a very, very prudent practice, you know, because you don't want kosher gerin liyisokas apachas. So okay, so now it may very, very well be that there's an entirely different cheshbon that the Chachmei Hadoros saw that they did not want to maintain Purim as a complete yontif, even like Cholamoid. Why? Ish Yehudi hoya b'shushan habira, right? Shmamod chai b'zeh, ish yemini. So hold on, you have an immediate contradiction in the pasuk. Ish Yehudi means he came from Shevet Yehuda. Ish yemini was from Binyamin. So, the mother was from Yehuda, the father was from Binyamin, also very, very problematic. The point is, so the Gemara says, one man says that Mordechai was muchta b'nemusa. What was muchta b'nemusa? It was muchta means he was crowned with his nimus, with his good character, his good midas, whatever. Tosha says that, what does it mean muchta? It said that he had very nice names. So the Rabbi Yonason says in the Yaras Rashi says Zeh betachlis hadoichek. He says on Tosfos. He says it's tachlis hadoichek, that he was muchta b'nemusa. That because he had nice names, you understand? You know what do you call it, Morty? You know what? Or Mochu? You know, Mochu Bachi. What? So that was the muchta b'nemusa. That was, what does it mean?
He means all the Ramazim of the names, but Shimi, but Kish, all the.
Yeah. But Rabbi Yonason says it's betachlis hadoichek. Dr. Rabbi Yonason, listen to what Rabbi Yonason says. He says that the Medrash says that Ish Yehudi hoya b'shushan ha'avira, and I'm getting like Biden. I'm really departing from the text. You know what I mean? From my what do they call him? The teleprompter that he uses. The teleprompter. The Havdil. Okay, thank you very much. But that he says that Ish Yehudi hoya b'shushan ha'avira is Yehudi is Yehudi. That he was the one that was the Meyached Shem Shema, that the Yichud HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was Meyached Hashem in the Shul. Because remember, the same Medrash says that there were 18,500 Yidden that attended Achashverosh's Mishteh. There were a lot of Yidden living in Shushan, evidently. Right? There was a big population. And he says, in what way was Mordechai HaYehudi? He was not Yehudi, but Yehudi, right? And where does it say it somewhere else? There's something similar. Vayichad Yisro, right? Vayichad Yisro. We changed there the ches to the yud, to the hey, that he was Megaya. And the same here we say Ish Yehudi is Yehudi, right? And there it says Vayichad Yisro, that he became a Yehudi. Okay? In any event, Zok Rabbi Yonason, that how did this manifest itself? Because it says that, and he knew well, because remember, he was the Rav and the Gimel in Metz, and Metz in France, and then the Gimel Tehilas, and it wasn't, let's say, it wasn't in Bonyad, you understand? And, it wasn't in Siget, it wasn't in Marmarosh. He was in Germany, and the Haskalah was very, 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 and the desire of the population was a more Western population. It was a wealthier population. They were more, more ready and more anxious and more able to be accepted by the Goyim. So he was always full of criticism for the lack of Niflinu Ani Amcha. Anyway, he says that in Shushan Habira, he said there were many Yidden. But he said that there was one Yid that proclaimed the Yehuda Shel Bora Olam. and that was only Mordechai. Because Mordechai was the only one who conducted himself publicly in a way to show that he's a Yid, to show the Yichud, that he believes in the Yichud Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How does that? And he brings a Mishnah in Hashaleach. It says that Hamoicher Abdul Nochri. It says that Bizman Sha'osen Nimusa is Yetzel Acheres. It says that if the Odin put some kind of a simon on the Eved, that he's my Eved, then the Eved has to go Lacheres. So Sugya, does he have to be Poidim? Did the Eved go upstairs? But the Gemara says, my Nemusa. Why Nemusa? What does Nemusa mean? It says the Gemara says Nushke. It means that there's some kind of, I don't think it means a brand actually like they used to do. It means that there was some kind of a simon that the Eved has that he belongs to a Yisrael. And so therefore ultimately he has to be redeemed. Okay. So he says, so Rabbi Yehuda says that what is the nushke, what is the choisem of the Klal Yisrael? Simeni ka choisem al libecha, ka choisem al zarecha. What is it? The tefillin. This is the tefillin. And he says that originally the way that the Torah stated the mitzvah of tefillin v'ro kol ha'amei yoretz keshem Hashem nikra lech v'yorah mimeka, that it was expected that you didn't wear the tefillin all day. They used to go, and he brings in Zohar HaKodesh that the Zohar HaKodesh says, Hova yikara le yukne de malka, that the person that walks with the tefillin all day, Hova yikara le yukne de malka, that they're machriz, the malachim are machriz, that everyone should step aside and make place for this person because he's the yukne de malka, he's a b'tetzelem elakim, right? Okay. So now, we say that Shabbos and Yontiv, Amaskona, there are other Lashonis in the Gemara, but the way that we accept is that the reason that Shabbos and Yontiv are Lavzman Tefillin is because Tefillin are an Os and Shabbos and Yontiv are Oses, right? And because of that, and that's where the question of Cholamoid comes in, whether the Yemei Cholamoid are Oses. There are those that say, like the Taz Gufa, the Taz holds that the reason that you don't put on Tefillin Cholamoid is because there's an Issa Malacha. But that's a Das Yochid. And it says, because the Rishonim don't say it. The Rishonim Tosis and Chagiga, and you see the Raavad says it's because the Yemei Cholamoid are an Ois. What is the Ois? Because Pesach, you eat matzah, and Sukkot, you sit in the Sukkah. That's the Ois. So Memela, that makes the having another Ois would evidently detract. The Oises would detract from one another. That's evident. Okay. So now, the Tefillin are Pe'er. Pe'eri alai u'peri alav. Pe'eri alai, that I wear the Rabbeinu Shalom's tefillin, u'peri alav. And he wears my tefillin. In my tefillin it says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And the tefillin that he wears, Kavayochel from the Klal Yisrael, says, Mikamcha Yisrael. Right? The Shevach of the Klal Yisrael. Right? That's it. Pe'eri alai, u'peri alav. Okay? Now, what are the tefillin? The tefillin are tiferes, pe'ercha chavosh. You remember that when the Novi, right? When the Novi, when he lost his wife and he was an pe'ercha chavosh, and we learned from there that the other ovel is also tefillin the Yom Rishon, the Yom Misa, the Yom Rishon is also tefillin because the tefillin are pe'er. And he is misbalish be'efer. Efer is the oisius pe'er. So Mamela, one that is be'atzvus, doesn't put on tefillin, right? So he's not, because the tefillin are pe'er, and it's not for efer, right? Okay. So it means that the tefillin are pe'er. Pe'er is tiferes, right? Shevach ha-tefillin. Because in the tefillin of the Borei Olam, it says, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. Okay? Tiferes is Shevach. Where do I know this from? Last week said that what did the Targum say? Pe'ere migboos sheish, es hamitznefesh sheish, es pe'are hamigboos sheish. What did the Targum say? It says Shevach kovaya. Kova is the hat that the Kohanim used to wear. Shevach kovaya. So the pe'are, which is pe'er, is Shevach, right? So the tefillin are tiferes, and the tefillin are shevach, right? Okay. the tefillin are yoker, right? That we were just discussing today. That's why we remove the tefillin only after the Megillah, because like Yehudim Hoysa out of the Simcha V'Sasu Vikar is tefillin, because Rabbi Lezer Hagadol taught V'ro Kol Amei Aretz Kishem Hashem Yorem in Mecca Nikra Lecha V'Yorem in Mecca. Nikra is the loshon of Yakar, right? So therefore, the tefillin are Yakar, and the tefillin are Pe'er, which is Tiferes, okay? And that's why Shabbos, which is the ois, and there's no tefillin, because of that. That's what Shabbos we say Shevach Yikar Ugedula Yitnu Lakel Melach Yotzei Kol, because Shevach is Pe'er, Pa'are Migboros is Shevach Kavaya, that's the Shevach. Yikar is tefillin, right? So Memela, that tefillah of Shevach Yikar Ugedula, right, was nisyased on the idea that Shabbos is an os, and Shabbos is Shevach, is Tiferes, the os of Shabbos is Tiferes, and the os of Shabbos is Yokar. Memela, that, shall we say, that removes the necessity for the os of the tefillin, because Shabbos is Shevach, Yikar, Ugedula. The Gedula I'm not going to explain now because it doesn't really pertain so much to the tefillin, but trust me, there's a very, and the explanations with say Ki Yom Zeh Godol V'Kodesh, okay? But we'll leave that. Okay. So now, Ish Yehudi Hoya B'Shushan Abira Yehudi, because Mordechai Tzaddik was Zohir, and he wore the tefillin publicly, and in everyone you can imagine what people. I remember years ago, if I'm going back 50, 60 years ago. I remember if children wore tzitzis and the mothers washed the tzitzis and hung them out on the line in the back, to dry, so the neighbors had not shame for the goyim. You understand? They were embarrassed. They're embarrassed. I don't know in where you grew up, but but people, they were embarrassed. You understand? Okay, so. He told me once a story. Kosnia Rebbe from the Bronx told me a story that he was once on the train. He was going to London to Avodas. He was going from the Bronx to Williamsburg, and he was for that time. We going back 70 years ago, more even. From the Bronx to Williamsburg, it was a full Hasidic levush. And he said, Yid came up. They were very embarrassed. It made them very uncomfortable. That he said it was a nit shame for the goyim. He said it's not it's very nit shame for the goyim. So he told him, it was Yisrael Rattenberg. It was very sharp. He told him. He said, "What are you?" And he said, "I'm Amish." He says, "I'm a Dutch Amish." So he said, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry." Then he said, "Ich habe mal angesucht." He said, "I told him." Understand? He said, "But that was the attitude." And Mordechai Tzaddik, persevered, and he persisted, and he wore his tefillin, and it was so Memela when. La Yehudim Hoysa out of the Simcha V'Sasu Vikar is the tefillin. So what does it mean? What does that mean? That the tefillin were a very fundamental element of the Yeshua, the Nes of Purim. So Memela, if the Girsa of the Ein Yaakov would be correct, and we would say that La'oy Salam La Yikares is Megillah, and you wouldn't be able to put on the tefillin on Purim, you would be missing one of the fundamental elements that enable the Nes of Purim. Mm-hmm. So Memela, the Amoraim did not accept that gift of the Ein Yaakov, and they said that Mikra Megilas v'Hoya Lashem Lashem is Mikra Megillah, and Oysalam is Lo Yikares is the Yemei Purim, which weren't accepted anyway, and the bottom line is that the tefillin remain. Okay, but the Chachamim, it could be that this was also part of the Kavon of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, not only as the Svar of the Taz, not to cause undue harm and financial difficulty, but there was also that the mitzvah of the tefillin was so fundamental and so essential in the Geula of that time, right? That and that of Yikar is tefillin, right? That the Chachamim did not want to allow Purim to be established in such a way that would kind of conflict with the mitzvah of tefillin.
What's going to be lost in love, right?
What?
Lost in love, what's going to be? Lost
I don't know. I don't know. Probably certain things will change. I don't know. In any event, la'asid lover, it looks like it.
They won't need it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't even know. I prefer to say I don't know. It's the, probably the safest.
Agav Chavosh is Oisis Shevach.
Yeah, what? Chavosh, yeah, Percha Chavosh, yeah, Shabbat.
Shevach, the Oisis.
Koros ha-Megillah b'Adar Rishon v'Nesabra Hashana. If they read the Megillah in Adar Rishon, this Eli all knows he was a Messiah, me and his uncle, David were Messiah Megillah, more than once, I think. Koren Oise b'Adar Hasheni, ein ben Adar Harishon, l'Adar Hasheni, ele kriyas ha-Megillah matonas levyonim. Right? Okay. So the Gemara that Adar Rishon came and they thought that they read the Megillah. So the Mishnah says they must read the Megillah again in Adar Hasheni, and ein ben Adar Rishon, l'Adar Hasheni, ele mikra Megillah. So the Gemara wants to know, well, what about the Pashias? Because the Pashias are also from the Mishnah. So in the end, the Gemara concludes that the Mishnah goes like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Shama Mishum Rabbi Yossi, who says that ein bein Adar Rishon l'Adar Sheni ela mikra Megillah b'matonis levyonim, and the Seder Pashas like Kamari. The Mishnah wasn't discussing the Pashas altogether, right? That it could be that the Seder Pashas also have to be read again. It could be that the Seder Pashas Yoyotze, but the Mishnah wasn't talking about it, and the Mishnah goes according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Shama Mishum Rabbi Yossi. Okay, that's one Mishnah. Turn the page. Ein bein yontev l'Shabbos ela orchel nefesh bilvad. There's no difference. What's the difference between Shabbos and yontev? Only orchel nefesh. That Shabbos is also b'mlechas orchel nefesh, and yontev is mutter b'mlechas orchel nefesh. Right? That's what the Mishnah says. The next Mishnah. Ein ben Shabbos liyom HaKippurim ela shezeh zedoyne biyad Adam v'zeh zedoyne bekares. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur. The only difference is that Yom Kippur is Shabbos is skila, it's Edom and Asra, and Yom Kippur even the Edom and Asra there's no skila, there's only kares. L'choira, this Mishnah of Ein Ben Shabbos Liyom HaKippurim should have been before the Mishnah of Ein Ben Yom Tov L'Shabbos. Why? Because if you look in the Seder Moed, right? If you look in the Seder Moed, so Masechtas Beitz is very late in Seder Moed. Yuma is much before. Understand? In the Rambam in the Seder of Zmanim, it's Shabbos, Erefin, Shvisas Osa, Shvisas Yom Tov, right? Okay, the Yom Tov comes only after Yom Kippur. So Mamela, that Mishnah of Ein Bein Shabbos Liyom HaKippurim should have come first. Okay? And another thing that we have to point out here is Ein Bein Shabbos Liyom HaKippurim, but the other Mishnah says Ein Bein Yom Tov L'Shabbos. It should have said Ein Bein Shabbos Liyom Tov. Why does it? This I saw already asked. Why does it say Ein Bein Yom Tov L'Shabbos? It should have said Ein Bein Yom Tov L'Shabbos, Ein Bein Shabbos L'Yom Tov. Right? Okay. Is that? Okay. That Mishnah of Ein Ben Yom Tov L'Shabbos and L'Oichel Nefesh B'Vad is not the din. The Perush HaMishnah, the Rambam says right away here, it's not the din. It goes according to Beis Shammai and Rebbe Eliezer, because we have other differences as well. We have differences because according to Beis Shammai and Rebbe Eliezer, Machshirei Oichel Nefesh are mutter. You could do the Machshirei Oichel Nefesh on Yom Tov and on Shabbos also. This is the Rebbe Eliezer the Miller, right? This is the right at the beginning, the Rebbe Eliezer the Miller, and we don't hold like that. And the Yerushalmi in Perach Mishilin says that this Mishnah goes according to Beis Shammai and Rebbe Eliezer Shamuti, and it's not the halacha. Okay, it's not the halacha. Fine. So again, for number one, the mission of Ein Ben Shabbos Liyom Kippurim should have come first, and secondly, the mission of Ein Ben Yontiv LeShabbos Ela Oichel Nefesh Bevad. It just a ha'ora Shabbos should have been Ein Ben Shabbos LeYontiv instead of Ein Ben Yontiv LeShabbos. Okay. However, we said that the Megilas Esther is Zichrem Lo Yosef Mezaram. Very often, when the Gemara asks something or answers something which is not pertinent, the Gemara says Hilchas Mashiach. What is that? Okay, but here the Zichrem Lo Yosef Mezaram Yemei Purim Hoila Lo Yavram Metoch Hayudim. So Mamela, in the Yemei Purim, if the Chazal discuss and give us a remez even what will be Limos Mashiach, you can't ask Hilchas Mashiach because the Yemei Purim Ho'ela is Lo Yavrum Metoch Hayudim. It's now, and it will be then as well. Okay. Rabbeinu HaKodesh saw that although now he was not an Atiyah B'Purim, either because of the reason of the Taz, or because of the consideration of the tefillin, or perhaps both, or he had other considerations. And as the drasha that Rabba Berei the Rabba says that Melocha lo kibila alayu, but he saw that, and will soon explain that to all the skeptics, will soon explain why did he see, how did he see, okay? But Rabbeinu HaKodesh saw that la'osid lovo, they were going to be mekabel. There was going to be no mania. There was not going to be no mania to observing the Purim as a full yontif, okay? And therefore, he in the Mishnayos he was meramez this. What did he do? First, he said that he first did Koros HaMegillah B'Adar Arishan V'Sabra Hashana, the mission of Purim, the mission of Megillah. And then, instead of going right away to Yom Kippur, he wanted to be Masmich Purim LeYontiv, right? He wanted to be Masmich Purim to Yontiv, to show that Hilchas, it's not Hilchas LeMashiach, it's Zichr LeYosef Mezaram, Yemei Purim LeYavru, that there will be a time that Purim will be a full, total Yontiv, okay? And so Mamela, he was Masmich the Mishnah of Ein Ben Yontiv LeShabbos to the Mishnah of Megillah, to the smichas, to show that although it's not kihilchas like the Rambam says today, because today it's according to Beis Shammai, but la'osid lovo, the din will be like Beis Shammai, will paskin like Beis Shammai. We'll speak about that now. And memela, the Mishnah will be halacha, the Mishnah of Ein Ben Yontiv L'Shabbos, and the Yemei HaPurim will be a Yontiv, like Ein Ben Yontiv LeShabbos. And Memela, he was makdim Yontiv to Shabbos in that Mishnah to be masmich Yontiv to Purim. And he was meramez in this Mishnah that la'osid lovoy, we will paskin like Beis Shammai, mekama tamim, and the Yemei Purim will be simcha mishta ve'yom tov. And therefore he was masmich this Mishnah of Ein Ben Yontiv L'Shabbos to this Mishnah of Koros HaMegillah to indicate that. Okay. Fine. Okay. What do they say? You know. So what do they say? You know, it's easy to to talk. Talk is easy. It's easy. You know.
So he's saying that the reason he bought the Mishnah, which is Ali bin Beis Shammai, was lost above, we're going to pass him like that.
I don't know if that's why, but he was masmich the Mishnayos in that way, that there should be a remez.
It does say that lost above, we're going to pass him like Beis Shammai.
What?
It does say lost above.
Lost lover, yeah, lost lover.
So this is all lost above. It's going to be Yontif lost above, like we're going to pass.
Yeah. But it's only a remez, not more than a remez. But he did it in this way to be meramez that Koros HaMegillah, and then Ein Ben Yontif, he was makdim Yontif to Yom Kippur, and he was makdim Yontif to Shabbos, to show this idea that it should that the one that had the good sense to come tonight here, would be able to pick up on this. Okay. In the street, you're not going to hear it. Okay. I once had a friend of mine, maybe it's not nice to say it, but I had a friend of mine, Yossi, and he made a bar mitzvah, and the speakers and speakers and speakers. And then I came in late. My wife and I, we came very, very late. And he said, you have to, I said, lost up. Have Rachmanas on me. Have Rachmanas on the oil. And what do you want? No, you must. No, people were very resentful, and they were right. They needed another speaker. So one thing he said, and it quieted down, he said, look, I know it's an imposition on everybody, but he said, listen for a few minutes. He said, whatever, whether good, bad, what you're going to hear from this man, you're not going to hear from anyone else. That's what he said. Okay? They were polite, and they didn't speak too long anyway. So now, Umamar Esther, right? Umamar Esther kiyam divrei Purim ho'ele v'nichtav b'sefer, right? Umamar Esther kiyam divrei Purim ho'ele v'nichtav b'sefer. That they were Makayim the Mamar Esther divrei Purim ho'ele v'nichtav b'sefer. What is the Mamar Esther? So here, you look in Pirkei Avos, in the Medrash Shmuel and the Mefarshim of Pirkei Avos, most say that this refers to the Memchas Dvarim Shator and Niknas Bem, that Oimer Dova B'Shem Omra is Mevi Gula Lo'olam, and that we learn, V'atoimer Esther Lamelach B'Shem Mordechai, right? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay? V'atoimer Esther Lamelach B'Shem Mordechai. Okay, that's why I'm going away from the teleprompter. Okay? Okay? However, I said something once, and I had a lot of, there's a sefer, I mentioned it, you remember Yossi, I think, I don't know if you were in Shalshut, that the Kol Yehuda and the Megilas Esther was from the Osher V'Dayan. Shabsa Lipschitz, he was a Talmud of the Yet of Leiv, he was from the Gedolei, Ingen, he was Satmarov, the first Rabbanus was in Osheva.
My Schwester signed on the consuls.
So you know, okay. So and to my knowledge, the Sefer hasn't been reprinted. It's the Sefer is Moridik. It's on Bereishis and Shmos and the Megilas Esther. So let me tell you first what I came to, and then I'll say what he doesn't bring the hochacha that I brought, but he says basically the same thing. And he starts out by saying that Umamar Esther kiyam divrei Purim ho'ele v'nichtav b'sefer, that Lech Knos Kol Yehudim, that Yidden b'chol ha'olam did tshuva that time, and that's why we Kimu v'kibla Yehudim, we learned that there was a Kabbalah Satorah, and we learned that it was Nemra Baruch HaKodesh, and Tosha seems to see a little bit of a stereo. How can you learn two things that from one pasuk? And Rabbi Yonason and the others, it's no stereo whatsoever. It's no stereo whatsoever because the Leich Knossos Kol HaYudim required that everyone do tshuva, the entire Klal Yisrael, right? How could we know this? That Kimu Masha Kiblu Kvar. How can we know this? Only because it was Nemra Baruch HaKodesh. So they're one and the same. That's very, very much Bekitz and Nimrod. Rabbi Yonason is marich many, many pages on this. But it says that B'Shas, that Klal Yisrael made their Egel. So the Kavayochel, who had the Verastechli La'olam, that there was an Isu, that there was an Edison, and he broke the Edison, and Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchas, and that destroyed the ksuba, and that was a mice of Gerushin. And he says, and the Medrash says that, and Rashi brings it, that Psoloch Shnei Luchos Avonim Karishonim, that Moshe Rabbeinu was the Shoshvinan that broke the first ksuba, so Mamela he had to write, when the relationship was restored, he had to write the second ksuba, right? Rashi says it, okay. And he says, he brings from the Bnei Yisoscher that he says that the zivug of the Kavayochel and the Klal Yisrael Ato Echad v'Shimcha Echad u'Mikamcha Yisrael Goy Echad ba'Oretz was not completed until the Kabbalah Satorah b'Mei Mordechai Esther. That machzig rushosa, let's say, of the Kavayochel, that began at the time of Psol Luchos Shnei Luchos Havonim Kareshonim did not come to conclusion until the time of Lech Knos Kol HaYudim, right? So now, before I'm going to read to you what he says, let me tell you how I came to it, right? And I wouldn't have even said it over if I didn't find the idea here. The Mishnah in Yevomis, the Mishnah tells like this, that Shloisha Achin, there were 3 brothers, and Shnayim Nesuin Shtei Achoyos. You're following me? And 2 of the brothers were married to 2 sisters, right? The Echad Mufna, and one was married, to a girl that wasn't related to the 2. Fine, very good, good involved. What happened? Meis Echad Mebalei Achoyos. So one of the brothers that were married to one of the sisters died, and without children, and she came leyibum, not to the 3rd brother that was married to her sister, but to the middle brother that was married to an unrelated girl, right? And what did he do? Ba'osa b'mama. And that middle brother, he was mekadosh the Yevama with kedusha kesef. Okay? Okay, very good. So now, this doesn't affect the 3rd brother, because the 3rd brother who was married to the sister is still living. But then what happened? The 3rd brother died, right? Okay, so what happens now? Because now what happens, the middle brother has 2 sisters who are Yevomas, and if you say that Yesh Zika, then they're achoyos b'zika. And then what can he do? He can't marry both of them. And if you hold that minatora yesh zika, maybe
He has to send them both.
Maybe they don't even both need chalitza. Okay. So what does Beis Shammai say? Beis Shammai says that he married the sister of the first brother, right? He can remain with her. And he's unaffected by the zika of the other sister, from the 3rd brother. She can get lost. Beis Hillel says differently. Okay? Beis Hillel says different. Okay, so what happened here? That there were 2 brothers. The 2, let's say on the 2 extremities, were married to 2 sisters. The middle brother was married to a mufna. The one brother who was married to a sister died. And the middle brother made Mamer, Kedusha Darabonon, Kedusha Kesed. And now the 2nd brother died, and now he has a problem on his hands because he has 2 sisters that he has to be miyabim or give chalitza. Because, okay, so, and min HaTorah, we would say that the mama means nothing. He has 2 yivomas that are kukas. But Beis Shammai says no, the mimer allows him to keep the sister that he was mekadosh b'mama, right? He could keep that sister, and the other one is potter even from chalitza. What does it mean? I mean, didn't we learn in the Mishnah that hayavoma is niknas bebiyah, that the yavoma there is no kinyan kesef, right? Okay, there is no kinyan kesef. Zokt Rebbe Elazar in the Gemara, and there are some that say Rebbe Elazar, but it's a mistake because it's Rebbe Elazar the Amora, not Rebbe Elazar the Tana. It was Rebbe Elazar ben Pedos. He says that Loitei Mamam LeBeis Shammai Koine Kinyan Gomer the Ibal Apukil Sagil LeBegite Ela Mamam LeBeis Shammai Ene Koine Ela Litchos B'Tzara Bilvad. What is the Mamar? What is the Mamar? He made Kedusha Kesef, which Minatera we would think is nothing because Hayavom is Niknas Bebiyah. So what was the mama? So he says that the mama helps one thing to allow the other sister to walk away even without chalitza. But it's not a coin. But now let's say he wants to get rid of the wife that he made mama. He still needs chalitza because she's still a yavoma. Okay, she's still a yavoma. Okay, so the mama does something. So Zoktashi, it's the rabba. Zoktashi, what do you mean it's the rabbanon? You're pattering the second one without even chalitza. Zoktosis Shita is that Beis Rebbe Elazar was saying that Beis Shammai holds that Mamer is koine min HaTorah. Okay, so you're asking a kasha, why isn't it included in the Mishnah there? It's a good kasha. but I have no answer. But but Al Kolpanim Tosa says that Rebbe Elazar holds that Maimer is koina midarabonon, midaraisa, but only in a limited way, only limited to pater the other sister from chalitza. But she doesn't make him. She doesn't. The Maimer didn't make that sister ishta gemura. He still, the bia has to still happen to make her. And if he wants to get rid of her now, he needs a get for the mama and chalitza as well. Okay, very good. Okay, so the mama is minat Torah, but it's limited. The mama only says that the other sister isn't zakuka; she walks away. Right. On Omid Beis, right? The Gemara, the Gemara has boy Rabba Mama le Beis Shammai Nesuin Oiso Eresin. So does it make, if according to Beis Shammai, which we said on Omid Aleph, that Beis Shammai says that the mama does something, does it make Nesuin Eresin? Okay. Correct. The Tosas Yeshonim, what do you mean? Didn't we say before that mama is not Nesuin and it's not Eresin? It's only litchos betzara, not more than that. The only thing that the mama does is it frees the other sister that she's not zakuka to this man, and she can walk away from the whole asik. No more than that. It's not nesuin and not eresin. Zok the Tosus Yeshonim that the boy, the question wasn't aliba de Rabbi Lozer, because he holds taka that mama is only, even though it's derais, it's only litchos betzara, right? But he holds like Rav Ami later on, who Rav Ami holds that according to Beis Shammai, Rav Ami was like almost a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Ami holds that Mama is koine kinyan gomer mamish, and if he wants to divorce her, he doesn't need chalitza anymore. He said she's ishta l'chol dover. That so he said that's what the Tosei Shoshanim says. We're not asking according to Rabbi Lozer, because although Rabbi Lozer says that Mama is minat Torah, but it's only limited, it's only litchas batzara, and he's going, Rabbi's question was according to Rab Ami, who holds that Mama is koine mamish kinyan gomer, she's ishta l'chol dover, even for Nedarim, and for Yerusha, and for Tumah if he's a kohen, right? Okay, he's going according to that. Okay? So Mama is koine kinyan gomer, right? Okay. Memela, ves Mama Esther, what do we have in the pasuk here? Umama Esther kiyam divrei Purim ha'ela v'nichtav b'sefer. And here also the Ibn Ezra, the Mefarshim, the Megilah talk. Why did they use the lashon ma? What is the mama mean? The Ibn Ezra matter. What is the mama here? And that's why it says in Medrash Shmuel and in Pirkei Avos it says it must be the din of Omer Dover b'Shem Omroi. And Metzachzeret gematet. What is the mama here? Look, they know that what was it? It was merames here in the remes. That's why the Megilas Esther. Why is it called Megilas Esther? Because it's Megalas Sesorim. That the whole Megilas Esther. And if you look at what the Ramah made his parish on the and the Gra al pi remes, it's half of a fellow. You see the remozim, the rimzer remozim. It's impossible to even understand. Okay. Over here, there's a remez in the word mama that they wrote Beruach Hakodesh mama to be merames that la'osid lovoi. The din is going to be like Beis Shammai who holds that mama is koine kinyan gomer. Understand? That's what it says. That umama Esther kiyam. That says mama because it used the word mama as a identification point. You know that the one, not everyone. And I said, you know that not everyone is going to pick up on it. You know those that weren't here aren't going to pick up on it. Okay, and you know, right? Okay, but the reason it said mama, it could have said many other expressions to say that they were Mekayim what Esther demanded, but it says mama. Then there's a remez that mama is a lotion of marriage, but specifically mama is the marriage, the kedusha kesef of a yavama, to show that la'osid lovor, the halacha is going to be like Beis Shammai, and memela the ein ben yontav l'shabbos ela oichel nefesh b'bad is going to be la halacha lemaisa, and so memela the smichas of the two mishnayos of Koras HaMegillah and Ein Ben Yontav L'Shabbos Ela Kriyas HaMegillah are both halacha, and even though it's la'osid, but Megillas Esther is Zichram Lo Yosef Mizaram, so Rabbeinu HaKodesh even brought that which is la'osid, right? So and all this comes because the Megillah says Umamar Esther, to show us that his meramis, that la'osid lovoi, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai, that mam is koine kinyan gomer. So now, and we'll end. What time is it, Tuvia? What time? 10:15. Okay. So we're going to end with this, okay, and we're going to depart from the text. Okay, we'll leave the text for another time. Zok the Chusa Yogan Aleinu.
Rav.
What?
Mamar is gematria pe'er.
What?
Gematria pe'er.
Pe'er. Oh, okay. Shkoyach.
Good. That was pear.
It makes it better.
So a pear
Okay.
shot.
And he says
It's too bad.
that he brings from the Bnei Yisoscha that when Esther said Lech Knoisas Kol Yehudim, and that that Kimo v'Kibla Yehudim everywhere, and the Eresin of the Astechli Betzedek of a Mishpat the Chesed Be'Astechli LaOlam came back, and the Eresin between the Klal Yisrael and the Kavayochel Ata Echad v'Shimcha Echad the Kamcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz, it came back fully only at that time. So let me read to what he says, a few lines here. V'kol zeh garma Esther hatzadekis al yedei shehi omra lamot chaleich knoises kol Yehudim. By saying leich knoises kol Yehudim, meaning that everyone lemekotten vad gadol, wherever they lived in all of the Kuf Chav Zayin Medinas, did tshuva, and the Ruach HaKodesh was made, that there wasn't one yid that wasn't about tshuva at that time. Sheyasa tshuva. And here you see I even umama nikra beloshen razal b'shem kedushin. That's it. Umama nikra beloshen razal b'shem kedushin kemo oser bo mama. V'zeh, and he doesn't bring the Mishnah, but when I learned this and I kind of arrived at this understanding from the Mishnah here, from the Tosus Yeshonim, right? That he says that Beis Shammai holds, according to Rabbi that Mamad is koine kinyin gomer and la'osid lover, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai. Okay, that's what and then I found it here. Samachti ba'omrimli v'zeh shama umama Esther ki am perush hakedusha shel Esther she gomer she yeh ben Yisrael aviyel shamayim kiyam yesh lahem. That she was Mekayim through. And so Memela, what happened? What happened? That la'osid lavoi, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai. There are many reasons that we say in mashkichem bebaskol la'osid lavoi will be mashkichem bebaskol. The halacha, the la'osid lavoi, the halacha will be like Rebbe Lezer by the Tanakh Noi. The many, the Losid Lovoi, the Gemara in Rebbe Lezer, the Mili even brings that there was a place where even at that time they held like Rebbe Lezer, right? And Hoyer Karsim Eitzin and Osim Pchomin to make the sakin for the Milan Shabbos, right? So Losid Lovoi, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai, and Losid Lovoi, we will hold like Beis Shammai that Maimer is Koine Kinyan Gomer, right? Machshira Oichel Nefesh will be mutter. Machshira Mitzvah, I'm sorry, not Machshira Oichel. Machshira Mitzvah will be mutter on Shabbos and on Yom Tov like Rebbe Lezer. And Memela, the Yemei Purim, will be a Yom Tov Gomor, like the Smichas of the Mishnah of Koras HaMegillah, and Ein Ben Yom Tov LeShabbos. That Rabbeinu HaKodesh was Meramis, that Afal Pi, that I was the one that was Noteya Netiya Bepurim, and I showed that Isa Malach Ala Kibul Alayu, that's only Bahai Alma. But Bilmos HaMashiach, when there'll be potter from the Shibud Malchias, right? And then the Yemei Purim will be Yom Tov, total Yom Tov, that Mishnah v'Simcha v'Yontav Mishlach Monas Ish L'Reu. At that time, Umola Haaretz Deas Hashem. At that time, Purim will be a Yontav Gomor, and that we're learning from Umama Esther Kiyam Divrei Purim Ela, that she used the term Mama, which is the term of Kedushin, but the term of Kedushin of Beis Shammai exclusively, which refers to the Kedusha Kesef by Yavama, which Beis Shammai holds is Min HaTorah, and through that we learned in Be'emes, and I'm saying the same thing that that Osher Vadayan said. The only thing I'm adding a little bit more with this, maybe didn't find it necessary, but this concludes, and I think that at that time, the question of why at that time we would be mevater on the mitzvah of tefillin is probably a good explanation in that as well, but nevertheless, Mama Esther Kiyam Divrei Purim O'ela, so it should, we should be able to see Avada in this time of Hester Ponim. You know, that we're living in such a time of Hester Ponim. And if you saw, I sent out a letter today, and I spoke about, that occurrence in Eretz Yisrael that happened with the Rosh Yeshiva, that there's it's not our place to designate this is a nace, and that's not a nace, it's not for us. But nevertheless, whatever it is, it brings a lot of light into our matzav of Hester Ponim to demonstrate that Yesh Elokim Shoftim Ba'aretz, and K'ato Shamei Tfilos Kolpeh, and Kashem Elokeinu B'chol Kereinu Ela Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Kodesh Baruch Hu Lezakas Yisrael Lefichach Hibelem Torah Mitzvah Shenemar Al Rechofetz L'man Tzidka Yagdol Torah V'Yedei. Do it. Get my hat from the closet, please. You want to say?
No, you say
Why no? You're.
Huh?
I know, sir.
Need my hat.
On the door now.
My hat was on there.